Good evening, Chairman.
Evening, Chairman.
Evening, Chairman.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor John White.
Good evening, Chairman.
Thank you, members. And
Thank you, Chair. I've received none.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare an interest in agenda item 224 /01716 which is Milton Road Car Park in Dover Court, as I am a member of the Levelling Up Committee and wish to leave the room at that point, with your permission.
I'm for exactly the same reason rather than go through it all again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I am here as Ward Councillor to make representations to the committee under item A1, Colchester Institute. In doing so, I will make reference to the North Essex Parking Partnership, NEP. who have commented. Although I am chairman of the NEP, I was not involved in the representation submitted. I am also a county councillor and will make reference to Essex County Council Heritage. Again, I was not involved in the representation and wish to have this recorded in the minutes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. There are none. Could I just say, apparently your microphone isn't working. Could we just take 5 minutes to change it out, if that's okay? Thank you. Nice.
Right, we're back again, so sorry for the technical fault. Technology is wonderful when it works. So we shall carry on with the agenda. Item 5 is A124013840 OUT, which is the Colchester Institute, Clacton Campus, Church Road, Clacton-on-Sea. And to present this one for us this evening, Alison Newland. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you. So this application has been called in by Councillor Honeywood on the grounds of design, highways, parking, density and amenity issues. So the application is for outline planning permission, including access, appearance, layout and scale for consideration. So landscaping is the only reserved matter. It's a part conversion of the existing building and part new build for 60 flats. This is the site. It lies in the settlement development boundary and the priority area for regeneration. It's also in Clacton Seafront Conservation Area. In terms of the principle, this is an unallocated site within the settlement development boundary where planning policy confirms great weight should be given to the provision of new homes. It's also an unsightly brownfield site within a regeneration area which will bring the associated economic benefits of construction and additional customers to the town centre. So the principle of development's accepted. This shows you the application site in the centre here, which you will have seen on your site visit today. The update sheet confirms that the draft Clacton Seafront Conservation Area appraisal was agreed by Cabinet on Friday, but there's a 1-week member call-in period, so it can't be formally adopted until this Friday. So at the current time, the site is still within the Clacton Seafront Conservation Area, so this plan is relevant. This is the site here. The draft proposal removes the site here and another modern block of flats over here and adds 2 properties opposite the site and these 3 properties just off to the northwest of the site. So that Cabinet decision is a material consideration, but the site does lie within the conservation area still, and so it's subject to the statutory duty and the policy considerations as they're explained in your committee report. The green triangles here also show you the listed buildings. You've got the Grade 2 former Grand Hotel, also called the former Colchester Institute building in Heritage's comments. And over here you've got the Grade 2 Church of Our Lady of Light and St Osyth. Here's some views from Church Road of the front of the site. So the site's been vacant since 2020. It's no longer required or fit for purpose for educational use. And the main classroom block, which is the tallest section, is to be converted and extended, and this auditorium section is to be demolished. You'll see at different points of the report I've referred to neighbouring properties. This is Langtree Court, the red brick flats over here. The 2 properties that have been added into the conservation area in the draft appraisal are these 2 opposite. Numbers 11 and 15 Church Road. You've also got this large sycamore tree on the corner of the site, which is to be retained, and this other sycamore tree in the northwest corner of the site is to be felled. That one's diseased. It's likely severely compromised its structural integrity and lifespan, so we don't have any concerns with that being removed from the proposal. So this is Harold Road off to the side. You've got Seaview Court, which I refer to in the amenity sections of the report. These properties have bathroom windows to this side elevation and then lounge windows here to the front, but they're secondary lounge windows. So their primary windows serving the lounge are in this bay. So they've got Juliet balconies above and the ground floor has bay lounge windows. So at the moment, the relationship with the existing site is single story, extending to 2-story. So the greatest impact in terms of light and outlook is over to that side of the site. You've also got Surrey Court and the Gables, which I refer to in the report. This is Surrey Court, and the white building on the corner is the Gables. Thorogood Road. So you've got the 2-story house at the back here, 3 Thorogood Road. That's referred to in the amenity sections as the most affected property. Obviously, you can see there's a huge amount of glazing on the back of the existing educational building that had classrooms, staff rooms, other communal areas that overlook that site, and it's totally overshadowed by the existing building at the moment. This is the Grade 2 listed former Grand Hotel. You can see this is taken from Marine Parade, so you can see the Colchester Institute building there within its setting. And then this is from within Thorogood Road, looking at this side elevation. And then this is the other listed building, which is further away, the Grade 2 listed church up at the corner. So you can just see down here the Colchester Institute building. and this is taken from the corner of the site looking back. So it's about 100 metres away, so it wouldn't appear prominently in the setting of the church, the proposal. So an appeal was dismissed in December 2022. It was for 61 retirement apartments. That was 41 one-bed and 17 two-beds. It was dismissed solely on the grounds that it would not preserve the character or appearance of the conservation area by virtue of the proposed architectural finish and detail appearing convoluted, monotonous and out of character in the street scene. There were no other issues other than that raised in the appeal, so it accepted the parking provision, which in that case was 20 parking spaces for 61 units, and the scale, siting, neighbour impact, listed building impact were all considered acceptable in that scheme. And you can see in blue here the outline of the existing footprint, so that scheme did step forward significantly as well. This is the site layout plan. So the retained sycamore I referred to is up here in the corner. At ground floor level, you've got undercroft parking on this side of the building. It's hard to see on this plan, but then the first floor overhangs like that and joins up to the rest of the building. So you've got the 41 parking spaces, which equates to 0.68 spaces per flat. In terms of the appeal, there was only 0.33 spaces per flat there, which was deemed acceptable. We've also got in this scheme 70 cycle and 4 power two-wheeler spaces, and there's a car club proposed, so that would be 1 vehicle for the shared use of the residents, which they would need to book. We've got a condition for full details of that. But it's anticipated from other schemes across the country to reduce parking demand by around 10 to 20 cars. A parking survey has also confirmed sufficient off-street parking available overnight for the withdrawn scheme of 76 units. It's an urban area with good public transport links, and the previous educational use would obviously have had significant parking impact, and there's very little on-site parking at the moment for that use. Highways have no objection subject to conditions. This shows you the elevations. You can see in blue is the appeal outline here. Hopefully that's clear on your screen, but you can see basically the ridge height of the appeal scheme, which had a pitched roof, is roughly level with the top floor of this penultimate floor level of the proposal. And then we've got the 5th story is set back from all elevations. For scale comparisons, the existing building is 14.6 metres high to the main classroom building and 16 metres to that tower on the corner. The appeal was 14 metre high with 15 metre high turrets, and they've shown the withdrawn scheme here, which is hashed. That was 20.5 metres high. That was for 76 flats, but that one was withdrawn. So the current proposal is 17.4 metres high and 14.3 metres high to this floor here. So as I said, the height is comparable to the existing main building and to the ridge height of the pitched roof appeal scheme. So that's a good baseline to consider the current proposal. And you can see the street scene here with this is the bin store for Langtree Court, which is set back, and then this is an outline of the listed building fronting Marine Parade. Then you've got the gables on this side. This is the rear elevation. So the bottom 2 images are just a zoomed in version of parts of this upper image. So again, you can see the appeal scheme in a blue outline there. So this section is facing those flats in Seaview Court. So the report recommends that these 6 windows are obscure glazed to prevent mutual overlooking between them. And you can see the height is quite comparable to that which was considered acceptable at appeal. This building is slightly closer, the current proposal. Louvre screens have also been added to the balconies to reduce views to the neighbours, which you can see a bit better here in the zoomed in image. No amenity concerns were raised during the appeal, which included 61 flats with windows and Juliet balconies to all directions. This shows you the Thorogood Road elevation, so looking into where the access goes into the site to the parking areas, and this is the substation which is on the site already, which is retained. And this shows you the scale in relation to the 2-storey house, 3 Thorogood Road. And this is the other end elevation, Harold Road. And again, you can see the scale here. That's in relation to that block of flats, Seaview Court. So this shows you a CGI and the existing view from the same location. So the proposed materials are warm white render, lime wash timber effect boarding. The projecting balconies are light grey metal with white and timber balustrades, sedum roof with solar panels, dark grey windows and doors, and the design is a contemporary interpretation of seaside architecture, with the projecting balconies providing visual interest to help break up the bulk of the building. We've also got the aerial view there, which shows it in relation to the listed Grade 2 listed building here, the former Grand Hotel, and this is Church Road to the frontage. So this is the ground floor plan, as I showed you previously. So access would come in one way and then out. This is an existing arrangement. They have access in those points at the moment, but you can't travel through the site. And there's also pedestrian and cycle access to the front with cycle stores within the building and a large refuse store. This is the first floor, which again, the undercroft parking is under this area. You can see that the louvered screens to the balconies, which are referred to, are in the balconies which are most affecting the neighbours. Second floor plan. And the third floor plan, which steps in a little, so it's reducing the views downwards towards 3 Thorogood Road. And then this shows you the top floor, which is set in from all elevations, as you could see on the street view. That was, as you can see from here, so it's set in, so it reduces the bulk of that section. So the application has been subject to viability testing. Paragraph 8.61 confirms it's been independently reviewed and accepts that the proposal can only make the RAMS contribution, but can't provide the required 30% affordable housing, 35,200 for NHS, 20,400 for ambulance, 107,302 for public open space, and the upgrading of 2 local bus stops. The applicant's review confirms a 1.75 million deficit. The independent review confirmed a 3.14 million deficit, largely due to the applicant understating the gross internal floor area. So it's accepted that the physical scale of building needed here to overcome the viability constraints it obviously results in a large building, which is going to result in some visual harm to the area. In terms of heritage, Historic England and ECC Heritage raised concern over the height and the detailed design, resulting in an incongruous design, particularly in relation to the balconies and roofscape. It's accepted the 5-storey mass and contrasting design will be very prominent in the street scene, but given the existing harm of the current site, which you can see up in that photo there, that obviously needs to be balanced. And we consider that this would result in less than substantial harm to the character and appearance of the Clacton Seafront Conservation Area and the setting of the Grade 2 former Grand Hotel. In terms of ecology, the birds nest within the damaged building, and there's some suitable habitat on site for birds and small mammals in that existing vegetation. A bat survey was undertaken which confirmed no activity within the building and low levels of foraging and commuting in the vegetation on the site. The biodiversity net gain, RAMS, and recommended biodiversity enhancements are secured by condition, with mitigation including bat boxes, sensitive lighting, and construction precautions. And ECC Ecology have no objection. There's also a holding objection from SUDS on drainage grounds. The applicant is working on that at the moment, but given the current site, which is largely hard surfaced, obviously there's no attenuation basins or anything for this kind of site, so we're happy that that could be dealt with by condition. So in terms of the planning balance, the current site is harmful to visual amenity, the character and appearance of the Clacton Seafront Conservation Area, and the setting of the Grade 2 listed former Grand Hotel, and it also represents a serious antisocial behaviour issue, which you will have seen on site today, the condition of the building. The scale of development required to make the site viable for redevelopment, as evidenced by the viability review, will result in harm to neighbouring amenity and less than substantial harm to the setting of the Clacton Seafront Conservation Area and the Grade 2 listed former Grand Hotel. Harm also results from the inability to provide the required contributions towards NHS, ambulance, open space, affordable housing and bus stop improvements. Great weight should be given to the heritage assets conservation. Great weight should also be given to reusing this sustainable brownfield site for 60 new homes, and considerable weight given to the associated regeneration benefits. On balance, it's considered the public benefits outweigh the harm, and the application is recommended for approval, subject to the amended wording of the RAMS condition on the update sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Speakers. Our first speaker on this item is the agent, Mr. Roger Gillies. Mr. Gillies, if you'd like to take a seat there by the microphone, and if you push the button in the middle with the little face on it, and you have 3 minutes. It's the one right in the middle, and the red light should come on. You've got it, yeah.
Good, thank you. Chair, members of the committee, the former Clacton College site has been vacant for some years now, and it's been a focal point for antisocial behaviour. So it's easy to overlook the fact there's an opportunity here to create a vibrant and attractive residential community. Quite apart from vandalism, repurposing the site for residential use presents a challenge both economically and logistically. Demolition is costly and often wasteful of resources. It's far more ecologically sound to reuse a building wherever possible. For these reasons, we've retained as much as we can of the structure of the existing building, limiting demolition to the auditorium, which is incapable of conversion. This is a large site and an ambitious set of proposals, but this is the only way to make the site viable for development. It has to be remembered that until recently, Clacton College generated a great deal of activity. All 4 floors were full of students and staff, and the site was subject to a great deal of activity, with people and cars coming and going throughout the day. We've addressed each of the practical aspects of the site. The overall mix of flats has been accepted by a tendering district council as responding to local need. Essex County Highways has accepted the level of car parking and recognised that the site is in a sustainable location, close to amenities and transport hubs. We've included space for car sharing and made allowance for deliveries for those unable to access the town centre. The site is mainly hard surfaces at the moment, but we are increasing the planting at ground level and introducing green roofs, planted terraces and retaining trees wherever we can. The scheme will be energy conscious and highly insulated, with sustainable energy produced by air source heat pumps and photovoltaic cells. We're increasing the height of the building to 5 stories, but there are equally tall buildings in the immediate area, and we have stepped back the upper floor to reduce the height of the frontage to Church Road. With this scheme, we've tried to introduce elements which will offset the scale of the building and add visual interest. The balconies and planted terraces will create a lively and dynamic aspect to the building, and where necessary, we've provided screens which allow the flats to enjoy balconies without unduly overlooking. We've tried to reflect some of the attractive elements of seaside architecture, although the materials and skills needed to produce the original 19th century buildings are way beyond the developer budgets nowadays. And in any case, the building would look like an unsuccessful mix of styles. The design for this scheme has had the benefit of a good deal of constructive criticism from the planning officers here at tendering. We're grateful for their input, and we believe that the development will change an eyesore into a lively building that will make a positive contribution to the area. Thank you. I'll turn it off.
Thank you, Mr. Gillies. Now we have the ward member, Councillor Honeywood. Councillor Honeywood, as you no doubt are aware, you have 5 minutes. From as soon as you push the button and the red light comes on, your 5 minutes starts.
Thank you, Chairman. This application does nothing to benefit the area, and residents are not alone in expressing concerns. Historic England have made their views clear. The design aspects of the scheme have not changed, and so in our view, the proposals would still represent an incongruous solution out of character with the conservation area. They go on to say, we believe that a viable, more sympathetic scheme is possible in this location. In its present form, the proposals cannot be supported on heritage grounds. Essex County Council Heritage say that the proposal is not a successful execution of seaside architecture, instead perpetuating the negative aspects of the existing building. For example, they refer to the balconies as bulky, repeated haphazardly, having the appearance of a bolted-on fixture rather than a well-designed composition, and appearing intrusive upon the street. They go on to say that, notwithstanding the concerns regarding the increased massing, the proposed elevational treatment and design is inappropriate and unsympathetic. Using out-of-season parking surveys carried out in October 2023, it's claimed that the failure to provide off-street parking for the new flats is not going to be an issue. As a local councillor who regularly visits the area, I disagree with this view and support residents' concerns that the additional vehicles will be an issue. North Essex Parking Partnership have let us know their views. In essence, there is one car parking space for each of the one-bedroom units. It is likely that two-bed units will require 2 spaces each, and as such, parking provision on the site will not be sufficient. Whilst there are local transport links, such as rail and bus, a majority of residents will not utilise these modes of transport and will be reliant on cars. There will need to be an acceptance locally that on-street parking in an area largely unrestricted is likely to increase significantly. In conclusion, reducing the number of flats from 76 to 60 and the height from 6 to 5 stories is a move in the right direction, but the development is clearly overwhelming. The report states that on balance, the public benefits of the proposal outweigh the harm. I'm afraid that residents and I, along with consultees, disagree. This could be a much better scheme for local people and the area. So I asked that this not be supported. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Honeywood. I'll just ask the officer now, Alison, is there anything from the speakers that you would like to come back on?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Members, questions for the officer? Who would like to start us off? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, if Councillor Honeywood hadn't brought this to us, would this have just been approved? Yeah.
It could have been a delegated approval, yes, without the call-in.
Thank you.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at 2022, and a non-determination appeal dismissed at that time, and I was sitting on this committee at that time when that took place. What has changed from then to the application that we have now, please?
So the appeal was for retirement units, 61 retirement units. This is obviously for 60 flats, so similar scale, but obviously completely different design. And in that case, as I said, the only issue that the inspector dismissed the appeal on was the detailed design of that scheme. Let me just put that slide up while we're talking about it. So the scale, the parking, the neighbour impact, all the other issues were deemed to be acceptable in that case. So, and that's why we've compared the current proposal to that in many ways. But obviously it's for members to determine, you know, based on the appeal decision and what's before you now, whether you agree with the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. What I was trying to determine in my mind was that the scale and the outlay, which in fact I have no problem with whatsoever. I do consider the building to be in its right place. A beautiful building, actually. Don't altogether agree with comments. But the one thing that is concerning me, that the number of parking spaces, which I believe is 41, is reminiscent to where it was in 2022. So if I may reword that to you, is there been an increase in parking spaces, or is it retrospectively the same amount?
No, there's been a significant increase in parking spaces. So the appeal scheme had 61 retirement units with 20 parking spaces. We've now got 60 flats with 41 parking spaces. So it's almost double. And a car club scheme as well, which wasn't in the appeal.
One more question, if I may, please, Chair. Given what's before us tonight, and listening to both county and district councillor, but district councillor acting in his role, would it be fair to say, in my mind, that there would be ample parking spaces for the 60 flats? Is that would that be acceptable?
On that basis, I think that's a judgment you would need to make within your debate. Ultimately, regardless of how you look at this, in terms of the highway standards, this is less than the highway standards, but you are dealing with a location which we consider to be sustainable within the location of Clacton, and ultimately we have the highway's recommendation to accept the standard that has been proposed.
As a supplementary to that, then, to just make sure I need to get this right in my mind, it is not the standard, the accepted standard, and it is for us here tonight, the committee, to make such decisions as to whether or not it is acceptable for approval or for refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I was right in saying that the affordable housing contribution would not be met.
That's right, there's no affordable housing provision, which is why we've got the viability assessment, which is considered that it can only meet the RAMS, which is obviously mandatory, otherwise we'd have habitat harm.
The previous application that went to appeal, did that have an affordable housing contribution?
So that had, let me find my notes because it was a bit confusing. So it had a 106, which was submitted during the appeal, which had a deferred contribution to affordable housing. So if the development wasn't completed within 3 years, they had to provide 112,000 towards off-site affordable housing. But if they completed within 3 years, they didn't have to provide anything. So that had also had a viability review. It had their RAMS contribution, and it also had 20,000 to the NHS. So it was those three.
So therefore, from that, it is actually possible to get an affordable housing contribution on a scheme, albeit that was one that was refused. It is actually possible to do such.
That was obviously retirement housing as well, which is going to have different costings, but we've had our up-to-date viability and independently reviewed by the same people that reviewed the previous case that said that it's not viable at this time. I mean, construction costs have increased massively since 2022.
But nevertheless, we're not going to get an affordable housing contribution, and yet it is possible on some schemes to do so.
You could take that away as an opinion in order to consider it that way, but it's not the scheme before us, and therefore I think we have to concentrate on what is the proposal and the evidence we have before us for this application. Ultimately, in terms of your policy on affordable housing, it does allow for viability to be a consideration, and therefore it is not contrary to your affordable housing policy by the virtue of it doesn't provide any affordable housing to be secured because of the viability exercise that's taken place.
Thank you. So therefore, it would be possible if the scheme were different, so therefore it's up to us to determine whether we think that this is an appropriate scheme and whether we should be having an affordable housing contribution.
Ultimately, that scheme was refused, and that scheme was also dismissed at appeal for different reasons. So that other scheme was not possible because it wasn't approved. This is a scheme that has to be considered on its individual merits. Alternative schemes may be out there, but they are not before you today, and therefore you need to consider the harm and considerations of this application and whether or not you feel it's appropriate in planning terms.
So would that mean that we would be within our remit to refuse the application because of that and maybe other issues not being met?
You have the option to refuse the scheme based on lack of contributions, whichever they may be, whether it's affordable or any of the others. If you feel that the evidence before you in terms of viability is not correct, but that, I would warn you, is a risk, and I wouldn't. I think I'd find it very hard to defend an appeal on that basis without a further independent viability assessment.
Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Following on that question about affordable housing, and therefore no, as I would call it, Section 106 agreement, but there are several bodies that say it's not ideal. However, if the builders wanted to pay a contribution, a mitigating contribution, and I think of the ambulance people wanting money, and also the doctors and the hospital wanting money. If there's no 106, how do we get that money? Because previously we'd have put it in the 106. So that would be my first question. I don't know whether you'd like to take that one first, but I have a second one that also has to do with the lack of 106, because one of the things on the 106 is the entire lack of any private spaces for these places, which I think is contrary to our usual scheme. So if we could try with the 106 going missing first, that would be the first one.
So because we've had the viability review, that's why we haven't got a 106, because the viability review has confirmed that it can't provide it. It can only provide RAMS, which we secure by condition now. So the RAMS condition is on there. If it had been proven to not be viable, then we would have had the 106 come forward. In terms of gardens, there's 4 front gardens in the scheme. You can see here to these flats. And then there's obviously all the balconies across the various floors. So I think the report confirms that there's 11 units that don't have amenity space, but the rest do and have private amenity space. So given that location in the town centre and so close to the beach, we're not raising concerns in terms of not enough private amenity space.
So there are 4 of the lucky 61 properties that will have a bit of space. Summing it up bluntly, some of the others will get balconies, which is fair enough. Now, the balconies, incidentally, they are really as a result of the inspector, and the inspector dismissed the previous one because it didn't enhance the character or appearance by virtue of its proposed architectural finish. So I suppose the balconies are an addition to try and bring it up to looking something like a seaside property. but that it's not everybody who's going to get a balcony either. So getting back to space, it's very, very limited. Then, if the chairman will bear with me, I think I heard you say, Alison, that the sycamore is going to be protected. Was that right?
The sycamore, which you can see here in this CGI at the front, or in my photo here, that one's retained. The one at the other end of the site is has got a fungus in it, so our tree officer's view is that it hasn't got a long life expectancy, so that one is coming out. And there's other tree planting proposed to come forward as part of the landscaping.
That does explain, because the landscape officer said that the tree should be felled on safety grounds. Now, I'm not recommending that. I want the tree kept, but that's fair enough. I think you've explained that for us. Thank you, Chairman. That's all me at the present moment.
Thank you, Councillor White. Just a quickie confirmation for me, really. When we were on the site this morning, the officer that was with us on the site visit pointed out where the heritage buildings were, the listed buildings nearby. In the report, I do note here that Historic England has concerns regarding the application on heritage grounds. Are all the nearby heritage buildings grade 2? Are there any grade 1 or grade 2 star buildings nearby?
No, they're just grade 2.
They're all...
let me find you the plan so you can see. So you've got the Grand Hotel here, that very ornate red brick building, then the church over at the corner there. They're both grade 2. They're the only listed buildings in proximity.
Thank you for that, Alison. Right, okay. If there are no further questions for the officer, we can go into debate. We have one more question from Councillor Sudra. Councillor Sudra, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question regarding 3 Thorogood Road. Am I at liberty to ask, has a letter of objection been received from them? And if so, is there any steps us as a committee can take to sort of keep that privacy for them?
There is a letter of objection. Let me just find you the photos. So all the objections are summarised in the report. So that occupiers' objections are summarised there. I think there was 8 letters in total. But obviously the report refers to the current impact. You will have seen on site the amount of glazing and how close that building is at the moment in terms of overlooking and overshadowing. It's already significant in both.
So is there any mitigating steps that we can take to sort of help their privacy out?
We had the withdrawn proposal, which had a greater impact on that property, and this scheme has brought that down and added more of these louvered screens to balconies. Obviously, there is going to be overlooking; it's unavoidable. But again, in the appeal decision, that had all living room and kitchen windows and Juliet balconies all along the rear elevation that face this property as well, and it wasn't raised as an issue in the appeal for the 4-storey building.
Okay, so the new design has lessened that sort of circumstance, in other words?
I think if we were going to be kind of blunt and honest about it, ultimately the current degree of overlooking is quite high. The proposed degree of overlooking at best is slightly less, but ultimately similar. And I think you have to unfortunately take that as a balanced opinion in terms of whether you could say there's planning harm sufficient to refuse. And I think that's ultimately where the appeal inspector took that issue as well with the previous scheme with windows that overlooked in that direction. It's a judgment of whether or not the extent of harm would be so detrimental to, well, it's detrimental, but is it detrimental to sufficient to refuse given the existing position that is a material consideration?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sudra. So we're now going to the debate. Councillor Alexander.
Chair, with your permission, I might sneak a question in as well during the debate. Might
You may sneak a question in if you
Thank
wish.
very much. Okay, and then I'll go straight into debate, leaving it open for Councillor Everett. Okay, the applicant, according to the 24 and the arboreal impact assessment, have they since submitted such a document?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Were you asking about a tree survey? Have they submitted a tree survey?
Arboreal impact assessment, AIA. Have they done that this time? Please, to back up the outline.
They haven't. I think if you, I'm just going to try and find so the tree officer's comments confirm that they have not submitted that. Nevertheless, the trees identified for removal don't merit retention, and the tree with the greatest amenity value is shown as retained, that sycamore tree. So our tree officer's view is that it's not necessary to have the arboricultural impact assessment. Landscaping is obviously a reserve matter as well, so that would all be finalised in the reserve matters, but that's the view.
I'll go into debate, Chair, with your permission. The one thing that I see through the whole of the application before me is a repetition of what technically or could have been thought of being in the previous application. Whether or not that's right or not, I don't know. But something needs to be done with that building. It's really a ghastly looking thing. And this is not doing anything to strengthen the beauty of the area. Parking. My colleague and I from the neighbouring ward often drive round there, especially during the summertime. Any assessment that has been made during the wintry months would indicate that there is little or no movement. During the summer, our illustrious visitors, and they're most welcome here, of course, fight to get parking spaces there. So I do see a problem that could loom from that. Chair, I'm also a little concerned by some of the comments being made by the tree and landscape officer, especially about the purple leaf plum, which I thought was a rather pretty one and looking like it was just about to burst out and burst forth to spring. The plums make a moderate contribution to the character and the appearance of the area. Do you understand I could be getting this wrong? The contribution they make to the amenity of the locality could be relatively easily replicated by replacement planting. So you're going to take a healthy tree out of the ground and replace it with another one. That's how I read this, and I could be wrong. But apart from that, I would like to think, if I may, for a second or two as to where I'm going to go, for I'm not made up my mind one bit.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Any further comments on the application, members? Councillor Smith?
So before I came in here, I like to check sometimes that we're not agreeing something that's never happened before. So we have a number of 5-storey buildings dotted around the district, so we're not building something that is completely unheard of. I wasn't sure what the idea of, I'll come back to that, but I took the liberty of going into your ward where you have one of these structures on the seafront that has 83 flats and only 26 car parking spaces. And so I asked the manager of that what the problems are, and he said during the summer months it's horrific because no one can get parked. And I appreciate that that's not actually a consideration for whether we refuse this, but I do think that it needs to be taken into consideration that it's not the people that live there, it's the people that visit the people who are retired in that area. And I think that that's needs to be looked at.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Mr. Pateman G.
Can I just, a small correction? Parking, visitors are material considerations. Don't say they're not material considerations, because they are considerations. What we are putting forward to you as officers is that there are material considerations to consider. One is where the appeal position stood, in part, because even a dismissed appeal ultimately is a material consideration. What the car parking standards are that are part and parcel of the guidelines that we operate to in this district. What are the experts' opinion, for example, the Highways Authority that have come forward, but ultimately the local opinion and local understanding of the area is material. What you do with all those components in respect of what you do as a decision maker to give them weight is your job. That's the job here today, amongst all those other issues of whether there were public benefits or detrimental effects of this proposal, and you need to balance them all together. But it is not correct to say that it's not a material consideration in terms of that particular element of highway consideration. It is. So I know it's a long-winded explanation, but I just want to make sure that for the record we are clear that it has to be given weight, but whether you give it little weight or a lot of weight is your ultimate decision as decision maker.
Sorry, I think reading through it, I think it said something about 0.68 car parking spaces per resident in the block, which doesn't take into account that each one of them will have visitors. That's the bit that I wanted to be added in, thought about, because I know the problem that it's caused in other areas. That's all.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On the subject of parking, the previous inspector accepted Essex County Council's views that they'd done a study on the roads in October 23 and confirmed that there were sufficient spaces for up to 76 units. Now we're down to 61. And what chance have we got of using parking as an excuse? Because we all know as locals that after May and right up to the end of September, it is virtually impossible to park on that road, and it therefore would be a case for arguing, I would suggest. But given that the inspector has already accepted it for a slightly different number of properties, what chance would we have to turn this application down on parking? That's my question.
Obviously the recommendation before you is approval on the basis that we don't think there is a sufficient highway argument to warrant refusal.
Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I also wanted to observe about the internet connection. So again, we've put in that it's up to 30 megabits per second. That just will not work for speeds faster than 30 megabits per second is what it actually says. We're now looking at download speeds of 1 gigabyte. We're probably going to go to 10 gigabytes. If we're putting in trunking that is only going to allow for that, then we are essentially putting people into digital poverty in the future. So I just need that to be looked at and clarified.
don't think I can answer that one specifically. We can ultimately, whether we have a policy position to actually insist on it to be higher. I can only tell you my phone works faster than that in this area. So wireless technology has moved on a long way since cable technology, but I don't have an actual answer to that at this point in time. Maybe we can come back to you later on in the debate if necessary.
Councillor Everett and then Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to move on to the heritage aspects of this. It's quite a hard-hitting description in the papers about heritage. I'd like to ask the officer, what sort of harm are we talking to the heritage assets? Are we talking substantial harm, less than substantial harm? Because if we don't know that, we're not able to make any decision, especially in weighted decisions.
Because we're talking about, in the first instance, the conservation area, obviously we're having an impact on a very small part of the conservation area, so it would always be less than substantial harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area because it covers such a huge area. In terms of the listed buildings, it would obviously vary. We're saying there isn't any harm to the church at the corner, and that was accepted by consultees and by the appeal decision as well. But the Grade 2 hotel, if I should put up so the former Grand Hotel here, you can see in the distance, is obviously, as described by Heritage, part of its significance is its prominence in the street scene because it's a beautiful ornate building. Their concern was that the proposal would compete with that, which again is for members to consider the impact on its setting in terms of its siting. When you look at the site plan, the roads help to reduce its prominence. You can see the angle of the road. So the main views of this listed building are from along Marine Parade, and you've got a real pinch point looking down Thorogood Road where you see that listed building with the Institute because of the angle of the road and the intervening buildings, which my photographs might show that better. So you can see there, so the existing building, even though that's 16 metres to the top of that tower, it's quite easy to miss it in a glance as you're going along there, but obviously I've taken it at the worst point here. You can see it's clearly within its setting and impacting on its setting. So it would be a less than substantial harm to the impact of the setting of that listed building because it's not because of the separation distance and the height of the existing building.
Thank you for that. I mean, that right-hand picture shows quite clearly that there's a bit of an eyesore building beside what is, in heritage terms, a more beautiful building. I don't see how we can say that that's less than substantial harm. I would argue that it is substantial harm, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Just leading on with the debate, we seem at this point in our life that we have changed the way that we look at planning. This was going to happen with the coming of a new government system within our country, and they determine planning and their vision of it according to how that government at that time does that, and I don't debate that. So I'm rigidly stuck, Chair, in a dichotomy here, because the one side of this worries me is that had I not lived next door to this very ward and endured many a long summer of parking and other misdemeanours on the seafronts, I may not have been so concerned in my mind as I am right now. Where on the other hand, the building is an eyesore, and the last thing that I personally want to do is to deter any developer from coming in here and developing our beautiful place which we all live in. So uh, I still am in that same rut now, Chair, as I was before. Maybe some kind of a magic wand which would send us all away and come back in a perfect scenario for us all, but I don't see that happening. That can't happen. So we must determine it as we see it tonight. So I'll just wait back for a little while and consider and then make a decision.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I do have to say I agree with you on the fact that it is an eyesore, but it is a bit of a quandary, and I'm still slightly on the fence. Well, definitely on the fence. But however, the parking in seafront areas is always a problem at any seafront, no matter how many car parks you've got. No matter how it's always going to be a problem. So I am starting to lean a little bit to off the fence on one side, but Councillor Smith and then Councillor Everett.
I would like to say some positive things about it. I actually find this quite attractive as a building, and I think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I don't see it as an issue. What we have there is an eyesore. What is being proposed is much, much nicer. I'm really impressed that we've got solar panels put on the roof. I'm assuming that we're going to have an EPC rating of something like A, which is going to mean that whoever lives there is going to pay almost nothing for heating and lighting. I think if to retire here and live in something like that is superb. And I think that we should commend that, the carpool as well. You know, I think these are great things. So I just wanted to add that to it.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Well, I believe it's definitely an improvement on the previous. I do remember the previous application when it came to us, the one that was refused. So we'll have Councillor Everett next, and then Councillor White, and then after that I will be looking for a proposal.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Everett, I'm just going to stop you for a minute. Sorry, Mr. Pateman G was signalling to me. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I have to apologise. Only a minor point, but Councillor Smith just reminded me. We just very quickly looked up the broadband. Apologies to Councillor Everett. We just looked up the broadband issue. In terms of the policy, it's your policy CP3. It requires super fast or best possible. Ultimately, if you come to a debate and you wish us to alter that condition to say to achieve best possible, we can then take that away and try to secure that, which may well indeed be above 30. But it's super fast at this current time in your policy.
I think that it would be practical to leave it that we can upgrade it, or at least be upgradable to current standards, if not beyond that.
Councillor Everett, please do carry on.
Thank you. Going back to the heritage and then moving on to scale, layout and appearance. It seems to me, exactly as many councillors have already said, that the existing building is an absolute eyesore. It looks horrible and harms the heritage much more than the new proposal. However, in my mind, there is a question mark about whether the design of the new proposal is appropriate in that particular setting, given the heritage nature of the building to the front of the photograph. And in fact, ironically, the old design used for the refused by the planning inspectorate perhaps would have been more appropriate in that circumstance from a visual perspective. However, I also am very, very aware that we need to do something about that site. It is awful. And so therefore, I'm sort of reluctantly in some ways coming to the conclusion that because we do need to do something about it, and it is really important that we get something moving on this, that I would like to actually propose that we accept this application.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's the old story, two wrongs do they make a right. Historic England on page 27 says that this building is going to be higher than the Grand Hotel, the listed building, and they have therefore concerns on the height. English Heritage, Essex County Council Heritage on page 33, 34 says this doesn't preserve or enhance the CSA seafront conservation area, and therefore it perpetuates the negative aspects of the existing building. Now, we have been told tonight that the CSCA, the Clacton Seafront Conservation Area, has got about a week's life left in it, in that the Cabinet have agreed it, and therefore a lot of these objections will disappear in a week's time. Well, they won't disappear, they'll still be there, but they won't carry much weight. So I find myself in a funny position in that I don't think, whether it's in the conservation area or not, the suggestion perpetuates the negative aspects of this building, which we all agree is an eyesore, but I don't think this design improves it much. So I'm really stuck. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor White. Any further comment on the application? We have a proposer. Yes, Councillor Alexander, go ahead, please.
Chair, it's before us in an outline application and will return to us. What movement would we have within its return for us to look at it again? Could there be negotiation? We've all heard the debate tonight. We realise that the building chair that we looked at today was never what I would call a listed building, far from it. And it had no place in a conservation area. It was an educational building. It was built as that. And what we have before us now, in many ways, although not agreed to everyone, would be an improvement on the derelict building that we saw. So with that in mind, could someone give me some guidance on what movement we would have as it returns to us at the next phase of its life?
Mr. Pateman-G.
The proposal before you is outline, but unusually this actually includes everything. So what it looks like, the layout and so on, except for landscaping. So that landscaping is the only reserved matter. So if this was to, if it returns later for that reserved matter, it will just be landscaping that will be a consideration for the proposal before officers, or if it's called in members committee. So unfortunately your considerations at that point will be limited to just that one thing, which is landscaping. So in effect, you'd be better off looking at this as exactly what you're going to get, as landscaping will obviously only detail where the plants are going to be and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman-G. Are there any further comments for the debate? We have a proposer to approve the application. The proposal came from Councillor Everett. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Goldman. Yeah, Councillor Goldman, you're seconding that. Okay.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So we have a proposer and we have a seconder to approve the application as per the recommendation on page 22 Thank you, Mr. Guyver. Which is paragraph 10.2 and the update sheet also, and also the provision of the Wi-Fi. Is that correct?
Yeah, the best possible.
Best possible standard of Wi-Fi. Have I got everything? Okay. So may I see a show of hands, and we are voting to approve this application, please, members. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. Those against? 2. Abstentions? 1. So this application is approved. So we'll now have a short break, and we will be return with Councillor White in the chair for item 7. Could we cease the live stream, please, Bethany? Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Right, colleagues, we'll make a start on this one. We're talking now about planning application number 24 stroke 01716 full. This is a planning application for Milton Road Car Park, as it's now known. I shall make mention of the name problems perhaps a little bit later. So we are going, there's nothing extra, so I'm going to turn to the officer, who is Michael Pegram, to put the proposal to us.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. So this application relates to Milton Road Car Park. It's located to the south of Bagshaw Road and north of Milton Road, falling within the parish of Dovercourt. The application seeks plan permission for the demolition of the existing car park and to be replaced with a new sort of single-level replacement car park providing 23 spaces. Sorry, bear with me one second. I don't know. Do I need to share the screen or anything? I've got the plug. Okay, sorry about that. So the application is before members tonight simply because the applicant is tendering District Council. So here's a red light site location plan. As I said, the site is currently a vacant two-level car park. It's in a poor state of repair. The surrounding area is heavily urbanised in nature, commercial and residential properties. You've also got a car park just adjacent to sort of northeast just here. There are Grade 2 listed buildings within the surrounding area. The site is also within Dovercourt Conservation Area and also within the settlement boundary of Dovercourt and an area prioritised for regeneration purposes. So here's just a Google image of the site. So again, you can see that it's very heavily urbanised. I'll just run through some photos. I understand you visited earlier, so I'm likely familiar with the site, but this is just facing east towards the site via Bagshaw Road. So kind of just in front here is where the proposed access will be. Again, via Bagshaw Road, but this is just looking southwest in the other direction. This is looking from Bay Road and just looking south towards the site. And finally, just facing north, this is the sort of the first level, the second level of the site, and it's via Milton Road. So this is the site location, site layout plan even. So it shows the 23 spaces. There will be access via Bagshaw Road, just in the northwestern corner up here, and there's a pedestrian access to the northeastern corner just here. As part of the proposal, there's 2 disabled person spaces, 4 electric vehicle mounted spaces, 6 cycle bays, and also 4 motorcycle bays. As you can see on this image as well, there's also landscape sort of dotted throughout the scheme to sort of just add a little bit of visual interest to it. Here's some elevational drawings. So there's not too much for me to really show, but the decorative black metal railing fencing with the design features that are aiming to reflect the nearby Redoubt Fort. And this is the proposed landscaping, which again is very similar to the site layout plan, but again in green you can see where they have really tried to include ways to sort of improve the visual aspect of the development. So in terms of the assessment of the application, the principle, the site will result in a regeneration of a large and vacant site which is located within the defined town centre and is in an area prioritised for regeneration purposes. So the development is considered to contribute to the regeneration and renewal of the area, and so therefore the principle development is accepted. In terms of the sort of scale layout of the visual impact, it would replace a site that's currently in a poor state of repair, been vacant for a number of months or a couple of years now. At pre-application stage, Essex County Council Place Services Urban Design Team were involved and therefore had great input into the overall design that you see before you. They said they support the Bagshaw Road entrance, retaining the existing access connection, and due to the lack of built form, they do not feel it will appear visually harmful. They also support the features, including like the landscaping, the pedestrian access, the electric vehicle charging points, and also the sort of pedestrian benched area just to the northeastern corner here. So overall, officers considered that the proposal will result in a visual enhancement to the location, so no objections are raised in that regard. In a similar fashion, we've consulted Essex County Place Services Heritage. They consider the current car park to be an unsympathetic addition to the conservation area, and it also does not contribute to the significance of the Grade 2 listed building. The replacement car park is considered to make a positive contribution to the local character and distinctiveness, and therefore they raise no objections. Essex Highways have been consulted. They've raised no objections subject to conditions. I suppose one of the key elements of the scheme here really is to sort of acknowledge that the overall parking spaces will be a loss compared to where we're at. So the current vacant car park has 60 spaces, that being proposed is 23, so we're at a 37 deficit there. However, given that the site has been vacant for some time, and also the car park adjacent to the northeast provided 51 spaces, the combination of both of those make officers sort of conclude that there'll be no significant harm with this loss of parking. There are a number of residential properties in close proximity to the application. However, we notice an existing car park. What's being proposed is essentially a smaller version of what's been there historically. And as a result, the noise disturbance via vehicular movements will be reduced with the reduction in spaces. So no concerns from that point of view. And just one other point just to sort of add is that Essex SUDS have issued a holding objection, but the applicant is in the process of preparing amended information to sort of address that. We've had discussions and we consider that due to the nature of the site being a hard standing area, we can sort of resolve this via a planning condition. So that has been added as condition 11 to the recommendation. So overall, yeah, officers are content with the scheme. They consider it to be a visual enhancement. The principle is acceptable, no impact to neighbours. The only sort of drawback is the loss of parking, but we feel that that's adequately served with the adjacent car park, and therefore we're recommending approval for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now for public speakers, I should have added that this application and all the remainders are in front of us tonight because they are tendering district council applications. So I'm going to call Mr. Mike Curran, who will be speaking as the applicant's representative tonight. Mr. Curran, you have 3 minutes once your microphone becomes live.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee for allowing me to speak to this planning application for the demolition of the existing Milton Road multi-storey car park in Dovercourt and its replacement with a new at-grade car park, active travel infrastructure, and importantly landscaping and aesthetic improvements. The existing car park is beyond its useful life and has been dormant since the opening of the new adjacent Orwell Place car park and event space in 2023. It is important to state that this project is part of a wider regeneration plan for Dovercourt Town Centre to support higher footfall, town centre activity, and importantly more private sector investment in the area. The existing structure is a mid-20th century steel-framed two-storey car park which has been vacant since last year and now beyond its useful service life. And importantly, its current condition detracts from the immediate street environment around the town centre. This project will work in conjunction with Orwell Place and other emerging regeneration projects to bring animation and vibrancy back to Dovercourt Town Centre. The site is located in a priority area for regeneration in the local plan, which will focus areas for investment in social, economic and physical development and initiatives to improve vitality, environmental quality, social inclusion, economic prosperity, education, health, community safety, accessibility and green infrastructure. The proposed design incorporates high-quality landscaping as well as an at-grade car park and decorative railings, all of which will improve the visual aspect of the area. The Milton Road project will support a healthy and vibrant community by delivering high-quality and well-designed parking and landscaping, which reflect the character and heritage of the town. Importantly, the proposals you have before you respond to the significant heritage of Harwich and Dovercourt by taking inspiration from the iconic Dovercourt leading lights and the distinctive railings at the historic Redoubt Fort. The development will provide additional transport infrastructure into the town centre, regenerating the area and further supporting local retail and service business, many of which are local and independent. This development will help to protect and enhance the natural, built and historic environments by making effective use of land in a key area of focus for the local economy. Finally, following extensive consultation with residents, members, local businesses and strategic partnerships, it is important to state that the project has widespread support amongst local people. Thank you, Chair.
Now, we don't have any other person speaking either for or against it, and no representative from the town or parish council or the ward councillors. So just ask Mike if he's got anything to add. I wouldn't think he would.
No, no, this time, thank you.
Right. Colleagues, it's your chance to ask any questions that you wish. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chairman. Michael, you said that there was a holding objection for this. Can you tell me exactly what that said?
Yeah, so the consultee response we got in the middle of January from Essex Suds, it's quite technical matters, but it's listed on page 103 of the agenda. There's 3 bullet points. I'm happy to read them all if you want, read all of it if you would like me to. Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, so yeah, the holding objection is on the following. So runoff rate should be limited to the 1 in 1 year greenfield rate in the first instance. If it has been demonstrated this is unviable, runoff rate should be limited to a minimum of 50% betterment of the existing brownfield rate. This should be supported by calculations. The drainage strategy states that the discharge of 2 litres per second is a betterment of the existing discharge from the site. However, the current brownfield discharge rate and greenfield rate has not been detailed within the document. Second point is the private drainage general arrangement drawing looks to show the rain gardens placed within the parking bays. It also does not correspond with the proposed site layout drawing. And finally, a CV value of 1 should be used within the surface water design calculations, as whilst areas of permeable paving have been proposed, there is no infiltration proposed at the site, and as such, these areas will contribute to the positive drainage system.
Thank you for that. Can you tell me what that means?
I suspected you was going to ask that. I'm not right. Yeah, I'm not a drainage expert, but basically where we're at, it's very technical matters. We've sort of discussed it as a team, and we feel that on this occasion, this is something that we can get addressed via planning condition. The applicant was preparing a revised drainage strategy that could address the specific points, but we just essentially run out of time to get it onto sorted before this planning committee, and we didn't feel it was necessary to delay a whole another month just on that basis. You want to add something else, John?
I'm going to come in on this one slightly. Ultimately, Suffolk County Council, in respect of their goals in terms of sustainable drainage, is fair enough, but ultimately whether or not we've actually adopted a policy to coordinate with that is a different question. But the point here is that we have a brownfield site, not greenfield as referred to by this, We have a site that is already 100% hard standing, and therefore, and the proposed scheme does have opportunities to provide patches of green space that could act as better drainage and betterment to what is currently on site at the moment. Whereas the county will have an aspirational goal, we have to consider the proposal before us and the existing position on site, and on that basis we can certainly work towards these goals, and we've put in a planning condition to enable us to do that. But actually there is flexibility here. We feel the way you have to consider the material considerations as a whole. So that is why we may not achieve the absolute value here, but it certainly will be an improvement on the current situation.
Thank you for that. At the present moment, no further questions. Mine is very minor, and you'll consider it not planning. At the present moment, we call it Milton Road Car Park, but the entrance is now going to be Bagshaw Road, and anybody who tries to enter it from Milton Road will be going round and round because, and it's not marked on those plans, but both Bagshaw Road and Milton Road are one-way roads. And so if you get into Milton Road, because that's where it says it is, you'll have to do a complete 360-degree lap round. A very minor point, but I was looking at the list of car parking on the Harwich Town map, and it shows it as Milton Road, so that might need altering. Right, colleagues, further questions, please. Yes, Councillor Wiggins.
All I was going to say was at the site this morning, one of the councillors in our party was talking about the railings at the side, and when he was a small boy that they used to jump over them. Can we be, well, is there any way that we can make sure that that can't happen, or just do something about it? Because I wouldn't like anyone, because if they do jump over, okay, they might jump onto a car, but if they hit the ground, they might come a cropper.
Right, so what I'm showing you here, I just want to caveat this image because this is from a slightly outdated plan. So this part in the top corner on the right hand side where there's a pedestrian step leading onto Milton Road, that's not there now, but everything else is accurate. But the only reason I'm showing you this is just because I feel like it gives a better sort of appreciation of how the site would actually look. And yeah, so essentially, I mean, you've got quite a tall, it's maybe not completely clear on this image, but it's quite tall, this back fence along there. I guess you can never stop somebody from climbing. There's no planning condition or way we could stop that happening, but I think it has been designed in such a way to try and reduce the chances of that. But from a planning perspective, I don't think there's anything else we can do, but John might have a different view.
Ultimately, yeah, I appreciate the sentiment here, and yes, any opportunity to avoid people harming themselves should be taken. I'm going to simply point out the existing situation where you have a story, a full story of car parking, which has got lower fencing that you can actually jump over currently, and at the same height as available. In effect, this reduces it to one wall as opposed to the current situation, which is all the way around, well, to at least two walls. So I think it's an improvement in that sense in terms of health and safety. The fences are sufficient in height to prevent people accidentally going over, but ultimately if they purposely wish to climb anything, they will.
Much.
In that case, I'm looking for a proposal. Councillor Wiggins.
Yes, I'll propose it.
Of accepting as written on page 96. I'm not sure that there's any conditions later on that I've not picked up. No, I don't think there is. So I've got a proposer for approval on the conditions as on page 96. Do I have a seconder?
Go for it.
Councillor Sudra.
Yep, I'm happy to second that, and yeah, happy that the car park can come back into full use.
Yes. Thank you very much. In which case, no further comments. I'll put it straight to the vote. Those in favour of the proposal, please show. That is unanimous. That application is approved. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome back to those of you who were away for that last item. So we're now on, we're not going to be doing item 8 because that was withdrawn. So we're now on to the 5 applications for the CCTV poles and equipment, which Mr. Pateman G is going to present for us, and he will do the presentation for all of the applications, but we will debate and vote on them separately afterwards. So over to you, Mr. Pateman G.
Thank you. So unusually we're going to present these all together, but ultimately you have to go through due process for each one at the end. Now, before I start, I've got to start with an apology. Your papers refer to randomly 12 metres high. Ultimately, all of them are, well, the column for all of them is 8 metres. The actual bell point at the top with the camera is about a further half a metre above that. But essentially, so that 8 and a bit metres per CCD camera, and the column is what you need to consider, not the 12 metres that was referred to in 3 of the items in your papers. So I apologise for that error. I don't know why that happened, so something to look into later. But essentially, what you're looking at is one of them. So that is in place at the moment. And it's part of the Safer Streets programme. It's obviously one of a number of applications coming forward. We do have another further application, not before you today, but it's in the system at the moment for another location. But it's a material consideration that there are more than one being dotted around Clacton, and supported ultimately by our partners, or the council's partners, should I say, in respect of this proposal. So very quickly, you have all been to each of the sites, so I don't want to go on too long. but ultimately, let's go through each one. So we've got the Clacton Leisure Centre located just off the car park there. We've got outside 137 and 139 Old Road. We then move on. We've got one just outside the High Street near the alleyway there. And then we've got in the residential area 48 Wellesley Road. And then finally, we've got opposite Orwell Road as starred there near the front there. In detail for each one, obviously they are 8 metres and a bit high. The first one being the leisure centre. I bet it might be easier if I just do the first one and stop, and then I can go on to the next one after that. That might be the best way to do this. There's very little I can say in respect that it is a column with a CCTV camera on the top. We don't consider in terms of this one that it has any undue harm in respect of listed buildings, conservation areas or anything like that. And we therefore don't have objections on that point. You can see roughly where it's going to go, which is just in this location. Can you see my mouse? No, you can't see my mouse. Let's change that to a pointer. Bear with me. Where's the pointer gone? I can't change it to a pointer, so therefore it is effectively along the edge there near the lamp there. So if I go back, nothing's now working. Okay, start again. So you've got the fence there, as you can see where the location is of the column. And just to mention on this one, there is a camera already on the column next nearby to it. It is planned to be, not that this is a planning matter, but I am told that it's going to be repurposed and relocated elsewhere. But this new camera is far more powerful in terms of the image quality, and obviously it's 360 degrees in part as well. But the old one, I am told, is going to be repurposed in another location. So that'll come, if it has to come back to committee, it will do. If not, it'll be put on the building or something elsewhere. So that's the first one. Do you want me to stop there, Chair, and take that forward, or do you want me to run through each one?
It might be easier actually if we do, after you've done the presentation, that we go to the debate and vote on it. So, Councillor Alexander? This is item 9, this one.
Yes. So, we're going to have a debate on every one or on a block system?
Sure, it won't be a long debate.
Well, it is a long time in coming. I think they're fantastic. For those who are with us in the big wide world out there, it shows our commitment to how we want to respectfully protect our citizens, and it will work well. And I will be the first person to say I think we should approve this and them. Can I comment on that?
Councillor White?
On this one alone, I haven't got any comments on any of the others, but on this one, John just mentioned that we'd spotted that there was an existing camera there already, and he also said that that's going to be moved to somewhere else, and we're going to have a new camera up on the new pole. Looking at do we need a new pole? That was my question, because the existing street light that the first camera is on is a sufficient height to put a new camera on it. That was all my thoughts.
I think in terms of the 360 degree element as a different device, I don't know, I'm not an expert, so ultimately, yeah, it is not the proposal before you. That's all I can say in planning terms.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. So, was that a proposal, Councillor Alexander? Thank you. And so this is item 9, which is A524/01596/full, proposed, Councillor Alexander. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second, Chair.
Just pipped you there, Councillor White. So Councillor Goldman, seconder. Could I have a show of hands, please, members, for approval? That item is approved. Thank you. So on to item 10. Mr. Pateman G.
As before, this one is outside 137, 139 Old Road, Clacton-on-Sea. Again, we're in the settlement boundary. We are also within the regeneration priority area as designated in your local plan. What more can I say? Again, I will very quickly just say it is 8 metres and a bit. The proposal, if I just say, I'll go between the two. You can see on the picture there the location of it just outside that premises. And if I go to the next page, it's a slightly better picture of, essentially it's going to be just next in that location, just where the car is at the moment. Go back again. Ultimately, I've got nothing else to add. There was no objections to this one, and there's no further information I can give you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No? Okay, I'll be looking for a proposer for this one, which is a 624/01761/4, item 10 on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll propose.
Proposal from Councillor Goldman. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Wiggins.
Happy to propose. Second.
Thank you. So may I have a show of hands, please, members in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. So that was item 10. Now on to item 11, Mr. Pateman-G, please.
This is for an 8 and a bit CCTV camera on a pole. Ultimately, in this particular case, this one's along the High Street. Interestingly enough, this is on I hope you saw it today, but a piece of paving that is projecting out as part of an informal crossing. Hopefully that picture is clearer than the one I showed earlier. And if I come back to there, essentially it's that part just sticking out. I tried to put an arrow. It won't. It's the best I could do with the technology. So that is the proposal into that location. Of course, in this particular location, it does enable a camera to look in all directions. That includes down that particular alleyway as well. Therefore, the recommendation is as your papers and approval again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman-G. So that's item 11 on the agenda, A724/01763/4, which is the adjacent to 37 High Street, opposite the former post office. Councillor Everett. Thank you, Councillor Everett. Councillor Alexander. Thank you very much. And may I have a show of hands for approval? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. Yes.
Next one, as I
Item
usually
12.
work
Yep.
in the building right opposite, so I will withdraw.
Okay, thank you. So item 12, please, Mr. Pateman-G.
So sorry, Chairman, bear with me one moment. I'm just checking one thing. Okay. So this one, my correction from earlier, is 12 metres high. Apologies. This is the one exception. So this one is higher than the others. Ultimately, it is in a residential area. We don't have any objections from anybody reported in this context. We've got no objections from any consultee either. We have been conscious, as your papers will show, in respect of the residential properties here, and debated how it would be sited directly in front of the residential property. It is considered that direct views, obviously, into the front gardens and front windows will be possible, as much as they are possible from a public realm position. Ultimately, it is a balance of recognising the improvement to security and safety within the area as a whole, and therefore on balance, the recommendation is approval.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Councillor Sudra?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. Are these 24-hour surveillance, or are they just as and when required?
They are 24 hours, as I understand it. This one obviously is 12 metres for the reason of not looking into the windows itself. It's higher up to look down onto the frontages, so it's mindful of privacy in that context.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Councillor Wiggins.
It was just an observation, really. I'm surprised that I'm sure that they will have received a letter so that they know the pole is going outside their house, and therefore they're happy for 24-hour surveillance. Just a comment. Thank you.
I can only say that we haven't received any representation otherwise, but what their feelings are, we don't know. But we ultimately have not received anything formal from them or from anyone.
Proposer, Councillor Alexander, thank you. Seconder, please. Oh, Councillor Sudra. You happy to second that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, and actually quite happy that a camera is going there, because I notice quite a lot of accidents happen up that road as well, so hopefully that might help them out.
Yep. Okay. So we have a proposer, Councillor Alexander, seconder, Councillor Sudra. May I have a show of hands, please, for approval? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. On to item 13. And we want Councillor Everett back in the room, please. Thank you. Mr. Guyver. Welcome back, Councillor Everett. So item 13 is A924/01765/full, which is the one opposite Orwell Road on Marine Parade East.
Thank you again. We're back to 8 metres this time. This obviously is a more prominent location within the conservation area and the sort of public realm of the seafront. We do obviously have had considerations regarding the conservation area, but it isn't considered to have any detrimental impact that would warrant refusal, and equally we also consider the public benefits in situ in any event. On that basis, we are recommending approval once more.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman-G. Councillor White?
No, no worries about this one that I can see, but will the camera be looking at the children's play area? I'm a little bit...
The proposal has 2 cameras. One is fixed in a particular direction, the other one is 360, so I would possibly yes.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions or comments on this one? If not, may I have a proposer? Councillor Wiggins proposed for Councillor Goldman, second for approval. May I have a show of hands, please, to approve this one? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. That just leads me to tell you that the next planning committee meeting will be on Tuesday the 4th of March 2025, and thank you all for your time this evening. Safe journey home.
That day to put.
Okay, thank you and good night.